I'm going to, there. Now we're live on YouTube. So I'm just going to refresh my YouTube. And guess what, boys and girls? For the first, there. Now we're live. For the first time, I'm also live on Facebook, which is a little different. Okay, let's just see what we've got going here. Something happened. Crap. Always got to be something, doesn't there? So I got a little shaky camera happening here. If you'll hang on, bear with me. Okay, I think that's got it. I just want to make sure everything is plugged in and working, because I've got an iPad that I have to try to keep live. There. Okay, I think we're good to go. I'm just going to include you, Steve, now. Oh, okay. There we go. Now I've got you. And I'm going to... I've got to assign everybody to placeholders, so... Geoff, Steve... Where did I put you, Scott?
Well, I hope number one.
Oh, you're always number one.
Okay, good.
Okay, so what do we have? Tonight, I'd like to welcome everybody to the chat again, and I'm introducing something new. I started this last week, and it's going to be hints and tips. Now, the one thing I want you to understand about the hints and tips, a lot of those are anecdotal. They're kind of MacGyver kind of tips. They can be hints and not even based on scientific fact, but the fact is that they work. And these hints and tips I try to pass on to the students when I'm teaching them, because you can find them or you can experience them through just trial and error. But I suggest that if you have photographers, such as you will have on this channel, who are professionals, they'll say, hey, I'll tell you a little tip about how to do that. So that's what this is all about. Just giving you little tips. And let me see if I can just get that kicked off right here. There you go. You see, this is a weekly hint, a little tip this week. And what do we have this week? Well, I'm going to talk about how to find the thread diameter for your lens. If you're buying a filter of some sort or an attachment that you're putting on your front lens, then you need to know the diameter. Now, some people have said to me, well, wait a minute, isn't the diameter, let me grab a lens here, and I'm going to grab a pointer. I'm not going to use my red pointer. I'm going to use my special pen, if I can get around this camera. There it is. And so on many cameras, let's see here, on this one, or lenses, I should say, you can see that right there is the thread diameter for this lens. So that's a no-brainer. But however, sometimes what you do is you end up with a lens like this one. And if you look at that one, there is no thread diameter on this one, nothing at all. All the other information's there, but not the thread diameter. So how do you find the thread diameter? Well, I used to be a machinist at one time in my back in the day life. Anyway, you can use a caliper. But how many people have a caliper handy? None. But I'll tell you the easiest way, and I know that you guys know this, is that on the inside of the lens cap, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but right up where my finger is, let me hold this as still as I can, right there. and I'll get a little reflection on it. There. So it tells you that this is a 58 millimeter lens cap. That means that's the thread diameter for your lens. That's the tip for tonight. They're fast, they're easy, but sometimes they're valuable. And if you guys have any tips that you can think of that you can bring to the table, I'd love to hear about them. Not only would I love to hear about them, but I'll tell you what, you give me a tip, you present it for me. So there. Unless you're too shy, well, then I'll do it. But hopefully you guys can jump in with some tips of your own. And they could be about anything. They could be about how to set up a tripod, or what's the best way to thread a camera onto a tripod plate. And because I know that I used to do some terrible things that, as a machinist, they say, don't ever do that. Well, I did that, but you'll hear about those later on, hopefully. Anyway, having completed that and talked about the weekly hint for tonight, we're back to tonight is going to be a very special evening because we have, and I thought I had that here somewhere. Yes, here we go. This is our guest tonight, Geoff Shaw, and he's a wedding photographer based in Hamilton, and he's going to share some really valuable information if you're interested in wedding photography, how to monetize it, how to treat the clients, and all that kind of stuff. He's the boy that he's going to be telling you about, all about that. So I'm going to right now bring Geoff on, and I'm going to talk a little bit about him because I don't think that sometimes we know enough. Hi, Geoff. Welcome to the show. It's nice
Hey,
to have
how's it
you
going?
here. Yeah. See, I
Yeah,
turned.
thanks for
Oh,
having
you
me.
got the right side this time.
I remembered.
Perfect. Okay. So one of the things that Geoff mentioned to me is that wedding photography is sort of a blend of pressure and reward, or not pressure, pleasure and reward. And I'm just going to change something here. There. That works much better. And I know this is painful. Anyway, in this session, Hamilton-based Geoff Shaw will walk you through his process and how he does things. He'll show you how to create natural, authentic images during fast-paced wedding. Wait a minute here. Okay. Yeah, there's always something that has to go wrong with my camera system.
No worries.
I know. So let's see if this works now. Yeah. Now, he will use some real examples from his photography and break down his approach to composition, light management, posing, visual storytelling. He'll share practical ways to help the couple feel comfortable in front of the camera. He covers strategies for common on-the-day challenges, adapting to low light, harsh sun, dealing with sudden weather changes, and staying creatively focused when the time is tight. You'll see the camera bodies, lenses, accessories, etc. that Geoff relies on and discover why he picks a particular gear for a different scenario. His presentation will follow a typical wedding timeline, getting ready for the ceremony, and portraits and reception. He'll highlight techniques that let him move smoothly between moments while preserving genuine emotion. Alongside technical advice, Geoff will outline workflow priorities such as framing shots quickly, balancing flash with ambient light, and making decisive edits that maintain a consistent style. He'll also discuss post-processing decisions, consistent editing styles, plus client communication and delivery timelines. He'll give you both creative techniques and business-focused takeaways that you can apply immediately. So whether you're an emerging photographer or simply curious about the craft, this is the talk that will provide practical, repeatable experience for you. Now, let me introduce you again to Geoff Shaw. Geoff, I'm going to get you to take it away.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much for the intro, Jorj. Quite a lot to live up to there. But yeah, as Jorj said, I'm Geoff. I'm a Hamilton-based wedding photographer. I've been doing this now for about like 7 years. Been to over 200 weddings. Last year I did like 40 weddings. This year I have around 30. So definitely have been in this industry for a while and know my way around a camera. I've been featured in a few publications as listed here, and also been getting a few awards, but we don't want to talk too much about me. We want to learn today, so we'll get to it. So here's just like a little bit of some photos to illustrate what my style looks like. So my wedding photography is definitely more candid focused. So I really like to see like the genuine emotions of my couples so that their personalities can really shine through. Because I believe like when you're looking back at your wedding pictures, you really want to be able to like feel what you're feeling on the wedding day. So seeing your emotions, seeing your guests' emotions and like how everyone was feeling is the most important in my perspective. So that's definitely what I like to focus on. And in terms of like stylistic choices in terms of like colors and framing and stuff like that. We'll get a little bit more into it. But as you can see, it's more of like a warmer look. I like to have the true to life colors, but also still have some stylized look to it. But yeah, so that's a bit about my style. So I'm going to go over what I think makes good wedding photos. So the first thing is composition. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with composition, just like how you're framing the photo. So I'll go over that soon. The second thing that's super important for me is lighting. And I definitely like to have consistent light because I find that when you have good light, your photos are easier to edit and more consistent overall. And if you kind of follow specific rules and strategies, you can achieve that consistent look. And the next is posing. So posing is really like half the battle when it comes to pictures, like with portraits. You can get like the framing good, you can get the lighting good, but if the couple's just like awkwardly standing there, then the photo, they're not going to like it. So posing and making your subjects feel comfortable is super important. And then also what you might not think like as important is actually really important. That's planning. So making sure that the day runs smoothly, because when you're doing a wedding, it's not just like a photo shoot, it's like a whole day, and you want to make sure that you have enough time for everything and you're organized and you're in the right place at the right time, because obviously there's constraints to that and lots of logistical stuff. So you want to make sure that you are organized so that you can actually achieve all of the photos that you want to. So yeah, we'll get started with
Pardon me,
composition.
Geoff,
Yes.
hello.
Yes.
Is there a way that you can swap out the live feed, like for the presentation? Because like my
Oh, you can't see the
presentation
presentation?
is really small.
Small.
Like I couldn't see your photos really that that you presented first. Is there a way to change? Because like your live feed
Daryl,
is big.
are
Yes.
you watching it in the Zoom window?
Uh, yep.
Okay. Do you see where my feed is up there? And you'll see Geoff's photograph up in the top left corner plus his presentation on the same page with the,
No, I
with,
don't
with,
see you guys right now.
with a red bar on the left.
I don't see you guys right now at all.
Who do you see in your gallery?
No, I have no gallery,
Are you on the Zoom
but I can
window?
see. Yeah, uh, yeah, I'm on Zoom. Oh yeah.
Have you
Well,
pinned have you pinned it?
Yes, I have. It's been pinned, and then I tried to get rid of the pin, and there was no undo pin.
well, let's see. Are you on a PC or a Mac? Sorry,
I'm on a
Geoff.
Mac.
Okay.
No worries.
So
Oh,
if you're on a Mac, then what I want you to do is, let's see here. Hang on. There should be in the top margin. You might not see it, but click in the top margin under Meeting. Do you see the word meeting in the top left-hand side of the margin on
I
Zoom?
do.
Click on that.
I did.
Does everybody show up now?
No, no.
So if you click on meeting again,
Oh, there's everybody now.
okay, stay there. Now, do
Yeah.
you see the thumbnail with the little red left bar going perpendicular?
There's a vertical one. Yes.
Yeah, okay, a vertical one. Okay.
Yep.
Are there two little or three little dots in the right-hand side of that thumbnail?
Yes.
Click on those dots and it'll ask you if you want to pin it. You can
Okay.
pin it there.
I just did, and there is the full. There it is. I got it. But
Okay.
I don't see the guys, but I don't see anybody else though.
No, that's okay. I mean, if you want to see somebody else, you can go back up and click on meeting.
Okay. Which is not there. Okay.
All right. We good to go?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Geoff, take it away.
Okay, we will continue. Yeah, so like I was saying, we'll start with composition and I'll kind of talk about some of the different things that I like to do in my pictures for my style. So the first thing that I really love to take advantage of is leading lines. So that's, if you're not familiar, just kind of in the composition, having something that kind of takes your eye across the page, usually to the subject. So some good things to do that generally, like boardwalks or roads are very common ways of kind of creating leading lines. In weddings, there's some fun ways I like to make leading lines. For example, is like the veil. So I'll like kind of hold the veil up across the camera and just kind of create that little swooping look that kind of leads your eyes from across the frame towards the couple in the middle. Other examples here, kind of this pond, for example, kind of brings your eyes from the side of the frame into the middle and into the composition of the couple on the bridge. So just those kind of things where you can kind of have those little paths or winding these things in the scene that kind of bring you to the subject always makes the photo more visually interesting and pop. Yeah, so then another common strategy is framing. So some things you can do with framing, and framing is essentially just like having stuff around the couple that kind of blocks off the edges or kind of looks like a frame and just really brings your eye again to the center usually where the couple is. So I like to do that with some things like foreground sometimes. So if there's like foliage, I might put some branches in front of the subject just to kind of cover the sides, just to kind of give it some interest and really make them pop in the middle. You can also do like a line of trees like I did here, or you can do in like doorways, or you can do like so many things like by water or on a bridge. So there's lots of different things you can do to framing, but I find it kind of adds a lot of interest to it. Another one that I love, especially with buildings, is symmetry. So symmetry, pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of having the image reflect in terms of usually the background that looks the same on both sides. So when there's like old buildings, especially, I love to use this with like arches or again with like doorways or windows, just to kind of give that really cohesive look. And it's very aesthetic to have the matching on both sides. So yeah, that's another one that I love to take advantage of. And then yeah, so that's kind of it for composition. I'm sure most people are familiar with most of those strategies, so I want to kind of skip ahead to the more interesting stuff. Yeah, so lighting is super important, like I mentioned, for me in my style. So there's a bunch of different strategies and priorities that I have for that. So I split it up into like outside and inside lighting. So we'll start with outside, which is usually a little bit easier. So this is kind of my preference list of lighting outside. So number one preference is golden hour, and I'm sure most people are familiar, but golden hour is either the hour before sunset or the hour after sunrise, and that's when the light is like really soft and the sun is low, and it gives you that nice glow, warm look. So that's my favorite lighting. Obviously, on a wedding day, you can't like do all the pictures during golden hour. if I do have engagement sessions, I pretty much always do them at golden hour, and any shoot that I can schedule, I will schedule for golden hour when possible, just to get the best photos possible for the client. And also it's like a little bit easier to shoot as well. So that's like a little benefit. Yeah, and then after that, my second favorite is overcast. So overcast is obviously when there's clouds in the sky. This is great because you don't have like harsh shadows and you have very even lighting across your subjects. So that's great, especially for when you have shoots during the day because you have even lighting all the time. And then after that, if it's sunny outside, I like to go to open shade. So I'll kind of talk a little bit more about what open shade means versus just shade. But that's going to be my next priority if there is sun. And the last resort is going to be like direct sun. So if it's midday or anytime that's not golden hour and it's not cloudy, just being in the sun, that's going to be my last resort there. So yeah, so to start off golden hour, I kind of talked about a little bit what that means already. You can kind of see an example here of what I was talking about with the glow and what that looks like. So on wedding days, I will actually still do golden hour photos. So typically I'll recommend to the couple that we go out usually like for 15 to 20 minutes during the reception in between like speeches or in between courses, just to get some photos outside if it's sunny, because the golden hour pictures are always some of the best photos from the day, and they really stand out, and it's usually the couple's favorite as well. So I always recommend working that into the timeline. But yeah, in terms of like positioning couples and people, any subjects for golden hour, I usually try and like have a little bit of a backlight so you can kind of get the glow around their heads. Here you can see like the haloing of the sun on the hair and stuff. Is there like a pointer that I can use? Let me see. Spotlight. What's this do? Oh, yeah, you can see that, right? Okay, great. So yeah, so like the haloing around their hair and stuff like that. So usually if it is like earlier in golden hour, like say the hour before sunset, I will still kind of stick to diffuse light or like shade somewhat. So essentially that means like going somewhere that you're not still in direct sun because it still can be a little harsh. So you're just getting like a little bit of the sun seeping in, but not like all of it. So it's not too overpowering until like the last 20 minutes before sunset. When the sun is really low, then you can kind of get right into it and you'll get that super amazing glow. Yeah, so here are some more examples. These two on the left are the very low sun right before sunset glow where you get the really warm look. And then this one might be like a little bit earlier here, so they're not like completely backlit by it. The sun's more on the side from an angle. But yeah, so that's some examples there of golden hour, which is again my favorite. So yeah,
Are
the
you using a
second,
flash on those?
so this is all natural light. I don't
Okay.
use flash outside
Do
typically.
you have an assistant like with a reflector or
No
something?
reflector.
Because like they're all backlit, heavily backlit.
Yeah, so at golden hour is the only time that I will fully backlight them, just because it gives that like artistic look with the warm look, and it's not as powerful, so that you can still get some detail in them.
Right. So you don't
But
use a
typically,
reflector or anything.
no, just because it's too cumbersome on like wedding days to have to worry about that, and usually I
Right.
shoot alone. So I've kind of found ways to not require that. Essentially, I'll kind of talk about that with the shade section, but essentially, as long as you have access to the sky, which means having light in front of the subject, you're kind of getting that foreground light from that, which is usually enough to kind of offset it if it's golden hour. But normally
Okay.
I don't like fully backlight them like that. Yeah, good question though. So moving on to overcast. So overcast, as we talked about, when it's cloudy, this is great because it's soft, it's diffused. It makes my job easier because we can kind of go wherever we want because we don't have to worry about finding shade or stuff like that, since it is cloudy and even. There are like a few special things that I'll talk about to make it look even better, which we can kind of go over now. So as you can see, the overcast lighting, very soft, very even on the skin, which is amazing. No harsh shadows at all. So the one on the far right is not ideal for overcast, and I'll kind of talk about how this happens and how to avoid it. So you can kind of see like there's like some weird shadows. You kind of get the raccoon eyes a little bit from them. So typically this will happen if they have their backs to the sun. So they're like technically backlit. So kind of the rule of thumb is if it's sunny, you want the sun to be sort of behind them, which we'll talk about in a bit. But if it's overcast, you want the sun to be in front of the subject, because when it's cloudy, the sun's not as strong, so you need more light kind of coming on the foreground. And if you have more light coming on the background, you're going to kind of get this dark look in front of them. That's definitely more of like an advanced thing. Most people probably would notice that, but it's definitely something that I like to avoid. So yeah, that's overcast. So the next one is open shade. And this is going to be the most probably common thing that I'll use on a wedding day, because usually it's sunny out. So for that, I'll look for what I call open shade. And essentially what that means is having the access to the sky, like I kind of talked about earlier. So that is your foreground light. So in this example here, we're in the shade of this tree, which is good. So if I were standing where I am over there and you look up, you can kind of see the sky, which means you have some good light coming in. If we were in, for example, like the middle of a forest, that would technically be shade, but it would not be open shade, because we would not have that foreground light of the sky coming in. And that essentially means that their faces are going to be kind of muddy. The light's going to be not great. It's going to be usually a little color casting from the leaves as well, a little green, a little orange, which isn't going to be very flattering. So you don't have that like clean light coming in the front. So that's the big advantage of the open shade. And that's something that I didn't really understand when I first started out, because I was like, shade is shade and there's no sun or there's no direct light, so it should be good. But you really want to make sure you're getting that open shade so you get the clean look. And then if there is like patchy shade, say there's like the leaves and there's some spaces between them, to avoid like that look where you kind of get like light spots, which is kind of happening to me if I go straight right now because of the blinds. To avoid that, I usually recommend having them like somewhat backlit. So essentially the sun is behind them. And the rule for that is you don't want the sun to be in the frame. You want the sun to be out of the frame, so you don't get the hazy look. The sun is just like kind of behind and like at an angle essentially, so that you can have their bodies create any shade. So if you were getting like the speckly look from the leaves, if you were to change the direction, now the speckles are going to be on the back of their head, so you won't see them, and their body will create the shade to kind of fill in the spaces, and it looks a lot better. So that's also another great tip to remember. So yeah, that is open shade. And then moving forward, I have a few examples of what that looks like. So you can use buildings. Buildings are a great way to get open shade. If you are going to be in like a tree area of trees, you just want to make sure you're at the edge of the tree line. So if I were to take them into the middle of this tree line, they would start to get a little bit orange and a little bit not as even on the skin tones, and it wouldn't look as good. But when they're at the edge, you get that skylight I talked about, which makes for that clean look. And then here's just another example where they're kind of somewhere that's spotty. So as you can see on the floor, there's kind of like the dappling of the light. But since the sun is slightly behind them, they are evenly lit on the front, since there is their body's creating the shadows, which is amazing. So yeah, that is definitely the most commonly used lighting strategy on a wedding day for me, is that open shade. And then the last one is direct sun. So typically direct sun is going to come into play if like the ceremony's outside, you don't have an option to where you can place them. Say it's like a venue and there's only like one tree, so you don't have a lot of options. Or maybe there's just like this really pretty spot that the couple wants to take a picture for like the background, like of a fountain or something, a garden. So then we'll kind of still take one there. So essentially avoid it if possible, but if I can't avoid it, we're going to do kind of what I talked about with the dappling light, where we have the sun behind them, but not directly behind them, so that that's in the frame and you get that hazy look. You want the sun to be kind of to the angle behind them, so that their bodies again create that shadow that allows for the even look on their face, and you're avoiding any harsh shadows. And then I also find that as a rule of thumb, if you can't even get the backlit light, if you do like a wide shot where the couple's fairly small and it's kind of just more of a shot that kind of gets the scenery, then it's not as critical usually, and you can kind of still get some cool shots with that. And then here's kind of an example of the differences and why I do like to avoid the direct sun. So on the left, you can kind of see the bride's face has like some weird shadows, and there's like some light spots and dark spots, and it's overall like not as flattering and clean looking versus the one on the right, which is again using that open shade, and it's a lot more even, and you got that glowy look in the background, which I definitely like to achieve. So that's kind of the difference in style and why I like to choose the shade over the sun. Plus, it's not as hot, which we don't love on summer days. Cool. So now that we've gone through the indoor lighting, we'll kind of touch on the outdoor lighting. We'll touch on the indoor lighting. So this is going to be super important for on wedding days, like the getting ready part of the day, any indoor ceremonies, and then also like the reception. So in terms of indoors, again, to like rank my preferences of lighting for indoors, my number one is going to be natural light because I'm mostly a natural light photographer. And that's going to be usually during getting ready is where I'll kind of go for the natural light if possible. And then the second option is going to be bounce flash. So using like a speed light on my camera and bouncing off the ceiling, which I'll kind of talk about. And then the last one is going to be just like the artificial lighting in the room. So incandescents or LEDs or whatever they kind of give you is the last option. So to start with natural light, so typically, like I said, this is going to be applicable in the getting ready part of the day with the bride or groom. And what I'm going to want to do is find any large window there that has like good natural light and typically indirect, so you don't really want the sun blaring in. If that's the only option, then usually I'll kind of close blinds so that you can get a little bit of diffusion going there. And then to make sure that there's no like mixing of white balances, I'll always turn off like all the other lights in the room. So if there's like a big orange light above their head that's on and you're by the window, you're still going to get that orange color casting on the side, which isn't as nice. It's not as clean. And it's definitely hard to edit because it's going to be mixing those white balances. So I always turn all the lights off. Everyone's always like, why are you turning the lights off? But just like tell everyone like, oh, it's just for the pictures. Because most people don't usually understand. But it definitely makes it look a lot more cohesive. So that's a big tip for sure for the natural light one. And then here are just some examples of some wedding photos where I'm using that light from a big window. So I'll do it for the bride putting on jewelry and stuff like that, or some just like solos after they've just gotten dressed to kind of really show off the outfits and stuff like that while they're still pristine. So yeah, these are all examples where it's just light coming in from the window. No other lighting has been added and everything else has been turned off so that it's very clean. So yeah, that's a bit about the natural light there. Another tip, if you can, it's like when you get closer to the window, it's going to be a little bit more harsh and you might get like bigger shadows versus these ones are a little bit further away and it's going to be a little bit more soft as well. So that's another tip there. Yeah, so moving forward onto bounce flash. So this is going to be my second option. So for example, if it was still getting ready and there's no windows, maybe it's just like tiny windows or it's an old building, then I'll typically use bounce flash. And this is also what I will typically use for the reception or like even the ceremony if it's quite dark. And flash is going to be nicer than like the lights in the room because it is going to provide that even look and it's going to be a consistent white balance as well. So if you can, even for flash for getting ready, you can still turn off the lights. But yeah, so in terms of setting up your flash, I usually use like an on-camera flash and a speed light, and I will point it up and slightly backwards. So the reason for that is that your ceiling is going to kind of act as your diffuser. So this only works for white ceilings or like light colored ceilings, and that's kind of the goal or the hope that you have that. And I'll kind of talk about situations where you don't have that. But yeah, so you're going to want to point it up, and then what's going to happen is the light's going to go into the ceiling, and then it's going to diffuse and reflect nicely across the whole room, which is going to create that even look that you can see on this picture on the right versus the one on the left is direct flash. So direct flash right now is actually pretty trendy, especially with weddings, just because it kind of looks maybe vintage, like 90s with the like pop-up cameras with the pop-up flash or like paparazzi where they'll kind of do that look. So you can definitely do it like if you want to get that stylized look, but I think like as a rule of thumb to get more of the timeless look that you can kind of look back at and overall looks good throughout the years, the diffuse light is definitely the preference, and that's going to be bouncing it. You can bounce it off walls as well if your ceiling wasn't white and your wall was white. You can point the flash to the side. That works too. And it's a little bit more annoying because every time you move, you have to change the direction of the flash. And if you're using the ceiling, you can kind of just keep it in one spot. And I like to do slightly back, not just straight up, because if you're ever pointing the camera down a little bit, if it is just straight up, you'll kind of get a little bit of direct flash when you tilt it. So when it's slightly back, you can always avoid that and make sure it is even. So yeah, Flash is definitely a little bit more complicated and was one of the harder things when I was starting out. But it's definitely super important to understand if you're going to shoot weddings, just because there's definitely going to be cases where you can't just use natural light. So yeah, that's a bit about that. And then the last one is just like artificial light. So sometimes there'll be like a wedding ceremony in a church, and I don't love to use flash if I can avoid it. And in those cases, I'll kind of use the artificial light. And that's just going to be whatever I have. So for that, I'll kind of switch my lenses to primes so I can go down to like 1.8 or what have you, so that I can get more light in. I don't like to set the shutter speed like under 1/200th usually, just because I don't want to get motion blur. But that's kind of like what I would do in that situation. In terms of other situations where I might use artificial light, this is like an example where we were in like a bar for a photo shoot. And it just kind of had more of a moody vibe versus the flash is a little bit more clean and polished. So if you want to do an artistic choice as well, you can use artificial light to kind of get that look that you're looking for. Sometimes I'll do like some artificial light for like dancing photos, just to get the colors that are kind of happening and just to kind of show what people see with their eye. It's a little bit more real life because the flash is going to be a little bit more modified. So that might be another reason why you want to do that. So yeah, that's a little bit on the artificial light as well. So yeah, moving forward, we can go to posing. So like I said, posing is definitely a super important part of wedding photography to make sure that your clients feel comfortable and they love their photos because half of it is what they look like, and people obviously care about what they look like. So yeah, so it's definitely all in how you communicate with your couple. So I definitely like to give a lot of positive reinforcement. So when I'm talking with them, I'm like hyping them up. I'm telling them they're doing great. I'm giving them guidance just to make sure that they feel comfortable and confident with their pictures. I give them like a little warning that the beginning is always a little bit awkward, which is normal, so they don't have to feel conscious about that. And then usually couples kind of warm up a little bit more as we get going, and they kind of get used to it, 'cause it's obviously a little bit weird at first just to be taking your picture and having this guy like take your picture and do weird things. So yeah, it's also important to kind of give some gentle authority. So you're telling them what to do, but you're not being like too like direct in a way. So you don't want to be like, okay, like put your hand here and look that way. You want to kind of be like, okay, like now can you grab her around her waist and move your hand like this? And you want to make sure that you're kind of gentle about it and positive, so that you're not making them feel self-conscious or instructed in a way that's too forced and uncomfortable. So it's definitely super important to have that positive interaction. And I like to constantly communicate with them. So if I'm like walking back, I'll be like, okay, like now I'm going to get a wide shot, or I'm going to come closer and I'm going to say, okay, now I'm going to do this, just so that they know what you're doing and they're not just like standing there, because sometimes they'll unpose because they don't know what's happening. So I'll always tell them when I'm done, so that they know when they can like on whatever I set them up to do. So that's also super important to kind of guide them through everything. But yeah, so instead of kind of explaining different poses and stuff that I do, I have a few little videos just so you can kind of see the communication style that I use on a wedding day and the different prompts and stuff that I do. So I have a lot of kind of fun interactive stuff just to make the couple feel comfortable and get like the authentic like laughs and looks from them. I'll do, of course, like a few just like standard looking at the camera, like smiling ones, because those are important too. But I definitely like to get some of those more fun motion-based ones as well to kind of get their personalities and genuine interactions. So I'm gonna play a video now. So I'm just gonna hopefully do this right, and hopefully this is showing up. Oops, the darn Zoom thing is in the way. Okay, let me see that I'm sharing Instagram. No, I'm not. Okay, let me switch. Okay, so I think we can see the Instagram one, and yeah, hopefully the audio works, but I'm just gonna play this. So this is just a little video of a wedding party prompt that I do to kind of get fun, candid reactions. So I'm gonna play this. Let me know if it doesn't work, but here we go.
Geoff, I'm not getting the audio with that one.
The audio didn't work.
No.
Okay, let me see if there's like a button that I have to do because it worked before.
It did.
Okay, let me just stop sharing and then share again and see. Okay, there's no, I don't see an option for making sure there's audio, so I'll just click share again.
Yep.
Ah, share sound. Okay, I found it. Okay, we'll watch it again. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
hang on a minute. Hang
Oh,
on.
yep. Okay, I'm just gonna refresh it so that it starts at the beginning.
Yep.
You're gonna pretend to walk because obviously there's nowhere to go.
Good.
So you're just gonna like, perfect. And it's fun. So you're just gonna do this and you're gonna look at each other. You're gonna be like, oh my gosh, we're going so fast. And then just like look at each other. And I'll get some candids of you pretending to walk. So just like before, I'll count you down and we'll start our fake walking. So on one, here we go. 3, 2, 1. We're pretending to walk. Let's see those legs move. Amazing, amazing. Keep it up. Keep it up. You're gonna cool. So that's just like a wedding party one. I have one here for a couple prompt that I do, so we'll play that one. Did the tab change for you guys? Can you see the next? Yeah, it did. Okay, great. And you're gonna look at each other. I'm coming this way, so watch it. You're gonna look at each other, and you're gonna like really, really, really slowly walk towards me, just because it's like hard. Don't fall, please.
Taking a little zombie step.
Yeah, that's good. Take slow steps. Perfect. That looks good. Great. And sorry that they're all vertical just because Instagram. But here's another one. So this is one of my favorite prompts I like to do to kind of get some laughs from the couple. Okay, I'm ready. So just looking at each other. Beautiful. Okay. And then Karen, you're gonna look at me, and then Joel, you're gonna rest like your forehead over her ear, if that makes sense. Like more like her eyebrow, temple area. Close. So Karen, look at me, look at me. Like Joel, like right here, you're gonna rest your forehead. Yes, just like that. Perfect. Okay, perfect. And then Joel, you're gonna whisper into her ear your favorite cereal, staying with your head like that, but in a sexy voice. And you can just look at each other, think about what just happened. So as you can see, there's like different things I'll tell them to do, and I've kind of trained them a bit on like what specific terms mean, especially if they've done like an engagement shoot or something like that. We'll kind of have little lessons on like what the smile kiss is and like the chest to chest and the forehead to forehead and all those different things. So I'll kind of guide them through it. They'll kind of learn the different terms, and by the end of the session, they'll kind of be pros at it. And yeah, definitely the positive reinforcement and different fun things just to make sure that they're having a good time, because obviously it's their wedding day, so they want to you want to make sure they're enjoying it. even the photos. And that way, like when they're looking back at the photos, they'll remember like, oh, like we had fun taking these pictures, and it makes them like the pictures even more because obviously pictures are capturing the memory, and if the memory is not good, then they won't like the photos. So it's definitely important to make sure they're enjoying the full process. Yeah, so that's like a bit about kind of my prompting and posing strategy there. Um, Cool. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was just like the planning. So again, not like really photo centric, but very important to make sure your photos are achievable and you can actually get them and everyone's happy. Um, so one of the major things that helps a lot on a wedding day is providing timeline assistance. So I'm always reaching out to the couples like 6 months in advance, if not earlier, to kind of check in to see if they want help with their timeline. And I'll kind of map out a little example of what their day could look like. So I'll get their ceremony time and I'll get their reception time. And I'll kind of draw out what I'd recommend. Um, we'll talk about like first looks and not first looks. And if you're not familiar, first look is essentially where the couple will see each other for the first time. Um, and a lot of couples are doing that before the ceremony now, so that you can kind of get your pictures done ahead of time and you have a little bit more wiggle room and more time for pictures, and it's like less rushed and stressed. Um, so this example over here, they did the first look, we got that. We did wedding party photos, then we did the couple portraits, and then I always leave some time before the ceremony. And then we did the family photos after the ceremony. So I'm kind of like telling them how long they need for all of this stuff. I'm telling them when they want to be done hair and makeup so that we make sure that that is done on time, because hair and makeup is like the biggest reason for delays on a wedding. You arrive to the getting ready room and then the bride's still doing hair and makeup and they're not done for like an hour, and then you have to go and there's no time for pictures. So I find like it really helps to be giving them the information like, okay, like you should be done hair and makeup for when I arrive. That way we have time for pictures. And like even if they are a little bit behind, which they usually are, I make sure that I have extra time built in so that if things do run a little late, we're okay. Because if you just kind of show up and hair and makeup's not done and then you're like late for the ceremony runs late, then you don't have time for pictures, and then that's all on you to kind of get pictures in half the amount of time that you normally have, and you're going to be stressed and you're not going to do a good job because you don't have enough time to get everything. So even though it doesn't really seem like your job to be doing timeline, if you don't kind of put in that effort, it's going to end up hurting you in the on the wedding day, because if things do go behind, it kind of usually reflects on you, which kind of sucks, but that's how it is. So I kind of find that helping the couple and plan this stuff in advance is really important to make sure that these issues don't happen. And then essentially this thing over here is like my little run sheet that I'll make before wedding day. And I have a questionnaire that I send them, and I'll get like specific, if they have any specific requests for shots, and I'll kind of write those down here along with like contacts and stuff, just to make sure that I don't miss anything specific that they wanted. All standard stuff I don't write down just because I've done a million weddings and I know what to get. But if there's anything like that they specifically asked for, then I'll write that down, just to make sure that I do get that. But yeah, so that's an example of kind of what I'll do before wedding. I have other things that I provide to my couples. So I have like different blogs on my website, which anyone can look at if you want. You can just search my name on Google and they can come up. So one of the cool things I have is like I have a family formal list generator. So this is like a little code that's embedded into my website, and you select what family members are there and if your parents are split up or not and all that kind of stuff, and it'll generate like a recommended list for you and the specific order that I recommend and stuff. I also have like timeline generators and all that kind of stuff, and I have like different blogs which go over the wedding day and how much time you need for everything and what to have prepared and like what details you want and all this kind of information for the couples so that they kind of know what to expect. Setting expectations is super important to make sure that there's no disappointments. And if they do like ask for something that you know you can't deliver, you should be upfront about that, just to make sure that there's no issues after the wedding day. So it's super important at the very beginning to kind of outline expectations for what you can deliver, and if what they want kind of matches with what you can deliver. So I definitely always do that in terms of just like types of photos, or if we can achieve these things in a certain amount of time that they have, and locations, and like even just like lighting and that kind of stuff if it's a foreseeable issue. And then I have other things like location blogs and stuff too to kind of help them for weddings or engagements that they want specific spots that can provide them. So yeah, that's a bit about education and planning. Another important thing to do is like location scouting. So if there's like a location for the wedding that you haven't been to before, um, for me, one of the most stressful thing is like figuring out where to do like the wedding party photos because typically I'll do them mostly in like one location. So I want to make sure that it's like the best location possible at the site. So I'll typically arrive early so that I can kind of look at where the location good spots are based on like where there's good shade, where there's good light, what's an interesting backdrop. And then I'm essentially looking for all of those different things we talked about earlier in terms of like open shade and also just like the backdrops. I'm gonna be looking for those framing strategies like symmetry or leading lines. But usually the biggest thing is definitely the lighting to make sure that you get the good even lighting. So yeah, doing that in advance is definitely helpful so that you're not like stressed on where to go on the wedding day. So either like arriving to the venue earlier on the day of, or even like if you wanted to going there another day in advance to kind of find spots. And that way, when you get there, you're prepared and confident and not like stressing about where you're going to take the couple or where you're going to do the family photos. Because that's definitely one of the biggest things to feel confident, at least for me. And then, yeah, so that's kind of the main planning thing. So the last section here is just kind of on some typical wedding day challenges that I might face and how to overcome them. So yeah, the first one is the timeline crunch. We kind of talked about that a little bit before. So if you maybe weren't able to help with planning the timeline that much, or they just don't have a lot of wiggle room and they only give you like an hour for photos after the ceremony, that's usually like one of the most stressful things for me on a wedding day is if you only have like an hour and you have to do the family photos, the wedding party photos, and also the couple portraits. So some things I do if that's the case. So for the wedding party, if they're not doing like the first look and stuff like that we talked about, I'll do some wedding party before the ceremony. Usually after they're getting ready, I'll do like just the groomsmen and just the bridesmaids. They're separate since they can't see each other. We'll kind of get those out of the way so that that's one less thing to do after the ceremony. That's one strategy that I'll use for that situation. Another strategy I'll use is we'll do more of the couple portraits during golden hour. So I talked about golden hour before. So we'll go out during the reception maybe for like a longer amount of time to kind of make sure that we can get more of their couple portraits done because we didn't have enough time earlier to do it after the ceremony. So those are kind of the two main strategies that I use if there is a really tight timeline crunch or maybe we lost time because something was delayed. So yeah, that is one thing there. The next one, no white ceilings. I kind of talked about this earlier. So like I said, for reception, the best thing to do is just bounce the flash off the ceiling. So barn weddings are a big one that does not have a white ceiling, or sometimes other old venues will have like a wood ceiling, or maybe it's like a black ceiling, or maybe the ceiling's just insanely high. So there's different options you can do here. Most wedding photographers will resort to like a direct flash, but I don't like the look of direct flash, so I typically will use off-camera flash. So you can kind of see it in the photo on the left here. There is that flash stand. So I use like Godox flashes. So like I said, I have a speed light on my camera. This also acts as a transmitter. So I can control my off-camera flashes on it and also use it as a flash. So typically I'll have like two set up at the opposite corners of the room. So like diagonally of each other. So in this picture, there's one here and there's also one like by me, I guess. So what you can do with that is I'll typically use it mostly for the first dance. Even if there is a white ceiling, I'll still add like one off-camera flash just to kind of get that glowy look in the background. I think it adds like a kind of three-dimensional look. It makes it a little more fancy. But if there is no white ceilings, then that's kind of like all I can do. So I'll have one there, one there. So the one on the other side provides the foreground light for them. And then the one on the back provides the like kind of cool backlight look. And it is a little harder because if they move in front of it, then you kind of get shadows and stuff, which can be annoying. So like if this was just like a black ceiling situation with white walls, I might sometimes like point off camera flash at the wall so that you have a little bit more diffusion and it spreads across the room more. I do also have diffusers that I can put on the off-camera flashes. But yeah, that's a little bit about that. Definitely a little bit more of an advanced thing again, but there is going to be situations where you can't do the bounce flash, so you have to make a choice, whether that's direct or off camera, whatever you prefer. Okay, cool. And then the next one is backlighting. So if there is, typically it's a ceremony, they always do this. They always like to have a giant window behind the couple, which is cool, I guess, but not great for photos. So usually you get that like hazy look because there's not really any foreground light and there's just a ton of backlight coming in, making them almost silhouettes. So at this venue, this is like in Hamilton, I will typically use an on-camera flash to provide that foreground light, um, to kind of even it out and get more detail from them. Sometimes like this wide shot, I didn't have it on just because for wide shots, it doesn't work as well as like the close-ups. But yeah, that's what I'll usually do for that as an option. Sometimes it's really hard and you get backlight and then you also have a wood ceiling and then you have to do like either off-camera flash like we talked about, or you can do the direct flash if you prefer. So that's like a double whammy. But yeah, so if this case is not too big a deal, I just want to use that flash off the ceiling and make sure it's powerful enough so that it can like even out the outdoor light. So that's another one. And then bad weather, of course, is a scenario that comes up because wedding days are fixed and you can't like move them. So this was actually like last month. There was a day it rained from like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. without breaks. There was no stopping. It was crazy. You might remember the day. It was in May. But what we did for that day is we had this barn, so we ended up taking the photos in there. I did actually have an off-camera flash that I was using to kind of make it a little bit more even because of the lighting in there was like incandescents, I think, and it was a barn, so there was no white ceiling. Otherwise, I would have done the bounce flash, but I had like an off-camera flash there. I did all the group pictures in there. I did the family photos in there. I did the wedding party photos in there. And then we even did like some couple portraits in there and some other spaces as well. For the couple portraits, I'll usually do like a mix of a flash and the natural light as well. But yeah, so that's one situation. If the rain is like not as heavy as that day, I'll typically go outside with like these clear umbrellas. I always have like 6 of them in my trunk so that we can go outside for some pictures. And the clear umbrellas are good because the light can come through them and you don't get like shadows on their faces or it's not dark on their faces. So that's another thing you can do. Definitely good to get those on Amazon, just so that you have them handy. Mostly for the couple pictures, I can do that. It's tough for like a full wedding party to do that with the umbrellas. But sometimes I'll put them under like a sheltered area and I'll be in the rain. You can kind of get them with the natural light coming in from the side. That's also a great option, like in between a barn door or like under a terrace or something. That also is a good option. And then just being flexible as well is important for bad weather. So if they did have that first look, maybe it's raining then, but not after the ceremony, you can kind of do some outside pictures later, or maybe you'll go out during reception to get some outside pictures. Kind of have to be a little bit more flexible if it's raining so that they can still get maybe what they had in mind outside, just at another part of the day. So yeah, that's a bit on bad weather. And then the last thing that can come up is equipment failure. So it's really important. We'll talk about what gear I have next, but it's really important to make sure that you have some redundancy. So I always have 2 cameras on me on the wedding day, with my camera strap. And that's just in case one camera had a technical issue, but also just so I can have like different lenses and have like a close up or a wide. But it's also important in case like a camera froze or something. I did have a wedding like last year where my shutter got stuck and the camera was no longer reliable. I did have to eventually get a new one, but on the wedding day itself, in the moment, it was just like group pictures, so I could just like switch to my other camera. And I did have a second photographer that day, which was good. But I also do have like a third camera that I have in my bag as like a backup as well, so I can still have 2 if one does fully fail. It's also important to have like extra batteries, extra SD cards, extra everything, different lenses that you can use. So like having maybe like a 24-70 and also like a 35. So if the 24-70 something happened, you could use the 35 to get the group shots and stuff. And just having like some redundancy in that scenario as well. Dual SD card slots is also really important. So having cameras that have 2 cards so that you can write to both at the same time. So I always am writing to both card one and card two, every picture, every raw, so that if there was like a hardware failure on one card, and then when I go home, they're also copied to my computer and then an external hard drive. So there's like duplicates going on throughout the process just to make sure that if there was any issues, there's the backups, because obviously that would suck really bad. And the couple is trusting you with their wedding pictures, and you want to make sure that they are safe. So that's super important. Um, Equipment failure is probably like one of the biggest issues that could come up for me now because it's out of my control. Like if my camera breaks, like that's really stressful because I do have other ones, but still it's going to be something that is a little bit annoying. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. Cool. So then, yeah, the last thing, like I was the gear. So what I use and what I recommend. So I use Sony's. I use mirrorless cameras. I have the A7 IV and the A7 R5. But if someone is just like looking to get into wedding photography, I just recommend any camera that has 20 to 30 megapixels and like a decently good low light performance. So it's not grainy at ISO 2000 to 3000, because sometimes you do need to use like natural light, or maybe it's a little bit darker, and even the flash off the ceiling isn't that bright because it's like a high ceiling or you're doing group pictures. So ISO 2000 to 3000, I do enter that quite often, and you don't want that to be like unusable. Um, Other things, you definitely want to have at least like one wide lens and one like zoomed lens so that you can have like wide shots for group shots or for the rooms or for like dancing. And then the telephoto is really great for like the ceremony. So you're not like at the front, I like to say the sides in the aisle. The telephoto is great so that you can kind of get those close-ups of the couple and the guests and stuff without being in the front. You want to kind of stay out of the spotlight. Um, and then in terms of like portrait lenses, I recommend like a prime. So whatever your preference is for style, I love to use like the 35 and like the 50 for couple portraits. Some people maybe like the compression look better and might use an 85. Nowadays they have like the 24 to 70 f2, which some people use as well. That works. Um, but I do like to use the portrait for portraits. I like to use primes. For like the more fast-paced stuff like the reception and the ceremony, I like to use zooms so that I can like capture if the couple's doing their first dance and they're doing like a spin, I can like zoom out really quickly if I was too close and not miss it, versus if I had like a prime, like it would be hard because I'd have to like run back and maybe I might like run into someone. Um, a lot of photographers do use uh primes throughout the full day, but I just find it just a little bit more difficult and harder to capture everything. So that's why I like to have both for those different parts of the day. And then the last thing is having those flashes. So it's definitely important to have some sort of flash for receptions or any situation where it's really dark. It's definitely critical to know how to use those. Um, so yeah, that's what I use and what I recommend. Um, cool. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. I know we kind of hit an hour there, so I guess we can go to, I had this in case we had extra time, but I feel like we could go to questions now. I don't think I can hear you. I don't know if that's just me, but
It's just me.
oh,
I'm not used to
okay.
this mic yet. So anyway, thank you very much, Geoff.
Of
That was
course.
fantastic. It kind of reminded me of my wedding days, and there were many of them for a few years before I really got into commercial and industrial photography. But um, great hints, great tips, and I'm sure that there might be a few questions. I know I have one, and that is that in my experience with weddings, there were always something that kind of was either really strange, really funny, or just a terrible situation I got into and I had to get out of it. So I don't know if you can share any of those experiences with us. I think that would be very valuable and also maybe entertaining.
Sure. Well, I guess like the most traumatizing thing that happened was at a getting ready space. I'll always like open the blinds and stuff for like the natural light, like we talked about. So I think the family was just kind of like stressed overall because like wedding day, lots going on. Anyway, I went to like it was like some sort of old confusing blind system. So I would try to like open it and then like the whole thing fell and broke. The mom was super upset. Like there was a lot of drama. Um, so yeah, that was definitely tough because I kind of had to just like go to the corner for a bit while they were upset. So yeah, that was a little tough. She did apologize later. She said it was just an emotional morning, so that made me feel better that I wasn't a horrible person. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I should have asked. I should have like not touched it myself. I should have let them do it. Um, so yeah, definitely, there's definitely high emotions on wedding days. So there can be things like that that happen, or
Sure.
it's usually the mother of the bride. It's usually the mother of the bride, but you never know. I'm pretty lucky to have pretty good couples, but things can happen.
Well, when I was shooting weddings in my heyday, there was no digital. I was using
Mm,
a Mamiya
much
six
harder.
by seven, and my thing was always A, make sure that there's film in the carrier. B, make sure that the dark slide is pulled all the way out, because if it's just slightly out, the camera would work. If it's all the way in, it
Hmm.
wouldn't shoot. But if it's slightly out, it would work, and you still get blank frames. So,
Yikes.
there were cautions that you had to make sure that take place. And of course, we had to wait a few days before the film came back, and you could look at any mistakes. That was fun. So, yeah, thank you very much again for sharing all
Yeah.
that with us. That was fantastic. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, someone's talking. Daryl is muted.
Yeah, I don't have audio. You'll have to turn the mic on.
Good presentation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else? Anybody? If anybody on YouTube has a question, just type it into the comments, and we'll be happy to answer them. And if you are on YouTube, let us know where you're from and who you are. That always helps.
There we are. Is it working now?
Yes.
Okay. In the video thing, I noticed that I was hearing a shutter. And
Yeah.
like for most things like that, we use like electronic or which we can now. So people don't hear you. Is that your preference?
So like I said, I have a mirrorless camera. Um, the shutter is actually not that loud. It's just how I film those is I have my phone on like this little mount that's connected to the hot shoe. So it's like right beside the camera. So it probably sounds a little louder in the video than in real life. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, it does have the what's called silent shutter mode
Hmm.
on it where you can turn it off, but there can be some risks with banding. So especially with like
Yeah,
the lights,
in certain
if
lights,
the
yes.
yeah,
The
if the
incandescent light is real
I
bad
think
for it.
like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I just have it off, just in case that ever happened, and I would forget to turn it back on. So I just
Okay.
have it off. It's not that loud, like, and I might turn it on like if the ceremony is like really quiet, I'll turn it on. But for the most part, my body moving around is going to be way more distracting than the
Right,
shutter.
right,
Um,
right,
yeah.
right. I would say you are a braver man than I.
Hmm.
I did a number. I did weddings for a while, and after my third bridezilla, it was like, you know, and I'm a pretty accommodating, nice person, and they were just, oh man. So I got out for the reason that the client has too much emotional investment in what you are doing.
Totally. Yeah, it depends on the clientele. Um, I definitely found like starting out when I was like more budget as well, the expectations were higher for some reason, or like they were more hands-on because maybe they didn't trust me as much because I was just new. So I definitely found starting out is a lot harder and you might have more difficult clients. But if you like stick to it and kind of get more experience and more trust in the industry, you start to have less of that, and it's a lot more seamless. Like I haven't had any issues with couples in like 2 years. Um, so I've been pretty lucky. But I think it's definitely like having systems in place and meeting expectations and just kind of who you attract. Because obviously there's going to be those people out there. Uh, I find they're either at the budget or the really high end is the more difficult clients. And if you're kind of in the middle ground, tends to be a little easier. But again, it obviously depends on your style and the couples you get. Um, yeah, but I've been pretty lucky to not have too many issues.
Right. Right. And your editing process, what do you do?
So for editing, I shoot in RAW, and then I import to Lightroom. Well, I have a separate culling app, but we won't get into that. And then I'll choose the favorites in the culling app, and I'll import the Lightroom. I have designed my own preset, so I
Yep.
never really bought presets or anything. I kind of designed my own style over the years, and save that to a preset. So I'll kind of apply that as a base, and then looks like we got a question there. I'll apply that to as like a base, and then I'll go through and adjust. Usually, it's mostly the exposure and the white balance and the crop. Um, but I have the way that I take pictures. It makes it easier to edit. So the whole strategies of like open shade and using bounce flash, all of that, even like consistent lighting on the subject makes the editing the same. So my preset works good on all those photos and it's easy to adjust for. And that's like a big thing of why I care so much about having the consistent lighting is it's also saves me time and it makes my photos more consistent in post. Um, so if it's like ambient light, it's going to be more difficult to edit. And if there's mixed white balances, it's going to be more difficult to edit. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the process. Um, I'm pretty fast now. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we do have another question here from YouTube. I'll post it here. What's your favorite wedding experience from your time as a wedding photographer? From Andrew in Hamilton.
Good question. I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite. There's a million places I've been to, a million amazing couples. I can share like some favorite venues I have in the area. So I love like the Cotton Factory in Hamilton is really great. It's like kind of this old industrial building that they've turned into an event space. It has art studios and stuff. Um, I love just like the huge open reception space, and I love doing pictures outside with like the orange brick. That's amazing. Similar to that, there's like the Spice Factory where I do a ton, and it has a pretty similar style. I love those kind of places. Um, but yeah, I honestly enjoy most wedding days, just having couples where we're having fun. I like to have fun with them, hanging out. I find like if I'm enjoying the day, they're enjoying the day, they're liking their pictures more. So just kind of being yourself and letting your personality shine, um, I find makes most wedding days fun. Uh, Sometimes at golf courses we get to go on the golf cart, and I like that, so that's fun. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Good. Yeah, I'm sure that that'll answer that question. At any rate, what I'm going to say now is that both of us have been wedding photographers. You are one. I'm no longer a wedding photographer. I've been a photographer for over 40 years, and I started off with weddings. That's not what I really wanted to do. I wanted to do industrial commercial. When that took off for me, then I left weddings behind. But I did have some interesting experiences too. And I don't know if you'll ever have this experience, but I shot the wedding all day. They really liked what I did. And as evening came on, they said, "Are you doing anything tomorrow?" And I said, no, not really. I don't have anything planned outside of working on the images. But, you know, they said, "Well, in that case, can we hire you to come on our wedding honeymoon?"
Crazy.
Yeah,
For
I
what?
I wasn't sure what question I should ask after that, but no, they were going to a very nice place, and they wanted photographs of them, and they figured that the photographer that was there, they didn't know them, so they already knew me, so I went on the honeymoon.
Amazing. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was strange. And well, yeah, I think that was the one, the outstanding one. But I'll tell you something else that's
Yeah.
interesting. Over those years, just like you are learning as you go along of the things that are necessary as part of your package. Um, very early on, because I was really interested in the industrial commercial stuff, so you have to do a lot of MacGyvering. And I found very quickly that there were things that I could do that would help the couple. And one of them was I always had a cooler full of water. When we went out to the park, nobody had water, but everybody was parched. So I had that cooler of water that was ready. So I just opened the trunk and I said, help yourself,
That's amazing.
and
Yeah.
I gave them that little moment, a few minutes of just relaxation. And I said, just enjoy the experience you just had at the church. We're not going to start photography immediately. The other thing I learned from an LA photographer down in Los Angeles. And when I went down there, um, he goes to all his weddings in a tuxedo.
Yep.
Could
And I
never.
said, why? And he said,
Awesome.
well, because I've seen too many people that go the other way and they show up for a nice wedding, everybody's formal, and they're wearing jeans, and
That's
maybe a
not it
t-shirt.
either.
I know.
Me,
And he
me
says, I
neither.
wear a tuxedo. He says, I'll tell you what, that makes me part of the wedding party. And so when I'm walking around, nobody looks at me because they just figure I'm part of the whole thing. So it works. Um, and of course, you get to know your own little tricks and bag of gadgets and stuff that you bring along that will help. I always had a sewing kit because
Yep.
if a seam broke or button fell off or something, I'd have an answer for that. I'd say, here's a sewing kit. One of the girls can kind of fix this, or one of the guys, doesn't matter. And the other thing I had, which nobody has heard of, anybody heard of bachelor buttons?
No.
No?
Are they
You,
for the collar, George?
no, they're
No.
for pants or even jackets. But what they are, you can get them at Walmart. They come in a little box, and what they are is that if a button falls off, like maybe one off your pants above the fly, if that falls off, you take this bachelor button, you push it through. It's a pin, and you put the other side on, and it locks. Now you have a button. They come in different sizes, so it's a real fast button fix. So
Very, very
yeah.
smart.
And
Yeah.
it's good
Gotta
for
get
me
one of
too, just
those.
in case my button breaks.
For sure.
Yeah. Anyway, anybody have any more questions for Geoff? No? Okay, I'm just looking at. I guess we answered Andrew's question. He hasn't said anything else. So we've had a good group on here. I think at the max we had 7 on YouTube, 3. I think it was 3 on Facebook, and then let's see, the 4 of you here. If you include me, that's 5. And I think that you're going to get a lot more hits on YouTube as the day goes along, because people tend to come on from different parts of the world where it's a bad hour for them to come here now. Anyway, that concludes the evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, there's no ladies here, gentlemen. Um, there might be ladies on YouTube, so I'll say ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much again, Geoff. Excellent presentation.
Of course.
Loved every minute of
Thanks
it.
for having me.
And well done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Full Frame George, and I'm going to say good night to everybody. But one of the things that I want to do is to make sure that, let me see here. I think I've got it. Let's see. Make sure you give us a like if you're on YouTube or if you're on Facebook. Both of them allow you to give us a like. And I've never watched it on Facebook, but I don't know if you can subscribe. But if you can, please subscribe. And we'd love to see you here every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. We either have, well, we definitely will have a hint for you every week, but we may have a guest for you next time. If there's no guest, then we allow the people who join us to show off their photographs, and they can ask for a critique or not. But we're always, always ready to see your work. Love to see it. And if you have any hints, let us know. So Scott, Daryl, David, Steve, Geoff, with that, I'm going to say good night. Thank you for attending.